Good evening. I'm Gloria, and this is Inception podcast live on a Friday night in the UK. This evening, I have a very, very, very special guest who's going to blow our minds, as as you will see. And I can't talk. I'm so excited. He is David Levitt. Good evening and welcome.
Hi, Gloria. It's great to be here. I'm
Oh, bless.
very excited to talk with you today.
Oh, it's wonderful. Obviously, I found you on someone else's show, and I was blown away by the conversation, the energy, your truths, your theories. It was so much fun. And then I was honored to have a private conversation with you. We kicked the wife to the curb. We kicked her to the curb. We did. And we had a conversation. Now, David, for anyone watching live or on the replay, we have a little treat. What is going to happen is David is going to give a brief bio because it's extensive. And you know me, guys, I don't remember anything. And I always prefer my guests to talk about themselves and me talk about them because they know themselves better than I. And he's going to talk about his work of what he does in computers. And we've got a little clip. Okay. But before we get to the little clip, David, please could you give us a sort of short bio of who and what you are?
Yes, sure. Thank you. I am a computer scientist and I spent over a decade at MIT. I was on the founding team of the MIT Media Lab. Before that, I was in the Artificial Intelligence Lab, where I did a thesis on, I play keyboards. And I guess I do a lot of, I've done some acting, I'm a musician, and I wanted to take the way I play in the style of Fats Waller, or on a very good day, a very tiny piece of Art Tatum, and put that into algorithms to advance the field of artificial intelligence. That was my thesis way back when. Then I joined the Media Lab and became the first Mac developer at MIT, doing computer languages that don't require you to type, that let you draw a diagram of the data flow. And fast forward to my dearest buddy, a fellow named Jaron Lanier, invited me to join his company, VPL Research, and they had just invented a thing called virtual reality.
Yes.
And I wound up joining, and they had a graphic language like that too. A guy named Chuck Blanchard did an amazing one, and I started extending it, and I added gravity. So I sort of put physics into virtual reality at the very beginning, and 3D sound I worked on, and I have to fast forward or we'll never finish, but I was at Paul Allen's Interval Research Lab. And actually that may be relevant because that's where I met Dean Radin and Russell Targ and started learning about the scientific study of the paranormal.
Yeah.
Then more recently, I founded Pantomime Corporation with Don Hopkins, one of the geniuses behind The Sims. And we've been doing augmented reality apps. And there's this practically secret technology from Apple. I say it's practically secret only because almost no one has exploited it yet. And it understands the distance. It doesn't just take a picture. It understands the distance of every spot in that the camera can see.
Yeah.
And it allows this totally unique form of uncanny, physically realistic augmented reality.
I can't wait. I'm getting excited now because being an artist, I love creativity, David. I love when people come together, whether individually or in a group, and start bringing in different mediums in, no matter what they are, and start to create something new and fresh. To me, it's artwork, it's creativity, and it's fresh art. So before we go any further, what we're going to do, guys, I have a clip here I'm going to put onto the share screen. And so you are going to have a visual of David's magic. Here we go.
We're going to build a custom basketball court out of some planks. I hope it's loud enough. And I'm going to attach one to this crate, a real crate. And I'm going to take this second edge plank and flip it the other way so I can just attach it And now I've got a 6-foot-high plank. Now really all I have to do is fling a basketball hoop at it, and sticks the landing. It's sticky on the back. Maybe I can toss a basketball. Oh, I love that tasty shadow, right? Reality construction kit. Notice the sun came out. It's just rendering all this beautifully. But I got my eye on that black bucket. It only took 30 seconds to build my basketball court. Why don't I stick a track just underneath the basket, so if I make a basket, when I make a basket, it flows in a slightly different direction. And yeah, I don't always make the basket. In fact, what would I do? Oh, perfect. Okay, I think that's going to work. Let me stick a second track below the first one where it will catch it, and I'll actually move the bucket a little. I can do that. LiDAR only takes a second or two to catch up. And let me test this, and sort of works, goes in the bucket, and it doesn't always work. Just like real life.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's kind of perfect when it dislodges the previous ball. So now I'm going to delete a couple of these extra balls I don't need, and I'm going to grab one more basketball hoop. Its diameter is just perfect. I'm sticking it in the basket so I can get 2 dings when I actually make a basket successfully. Let me just try it. Perfect.
David, I got to say, when I saw that, it's like that's 3D reality and you've immersed in this magic, and it just...
Reality
I find that fascinating.
Realistic augmented reality.
Sorry, just a second. Hold on. We need to...
It started the next video. I paused it. It's fine.
Okay, lovely. I find that amazing that you could do that. And I already said to you before, right, I would like one of those. I would like my multi-dimensional beings, come some of the spirit world if you want, and bring them into my reality, sitting next to me. I mean, that's the paranormal, because I experience that, but others don't see what I experience. So my mind's now going creative here. So you could be a portal. So someone could give you the data of an experience that others are unable to see at the moment, me and Gail will say, and visualize someone's personal experience, could you not?
You can, yeah, that one application it's almost an empathic application where you're seeing from others' point of view in a kind of a literal way. There's several different directions that virtual and augmented reality have gone in the decades since I had the pleasure of being at the company that invented it. And it's interesting to see how it's advanced and how it's been compromised. Back at VPL, we took the idea of virtual, Jaron invented the term virtual reality. So we didn't use reality lightly, and we didn't really think that you could have a virtual reality world of any merit if there was only one person in it. That's just a video game. That's just solipsism or something. It has to be consensual reality. That's how we used to define reality. So multi-person worlds, and perhaps more important, the first product at VPL Research was actually the data glove, the thing that lets you reach into virtual reality and manipulate things. Fast forward to 8 years ago, when the Facebooks of the world noticed that phones had gotten cheap enough to glue them to your face and make a version of what we had done. And suddenly, didn't matter that there wasn't anybody else in it. It's still reality because it has a high frame rate and a lot of pixels. It doesn't matter that you can't reach in at all. And they have these absurd interfaces where there was something called there was something from Oculus where the only way to interact with it was to look around and to tap your temple to do anything. You looked like some kind of crazy spastic, and you couldn't interact with anything. And the whole thing, reaching in with a glove or reaching in with anything. So I sort of invented this technique where you're actually reaching in with the mobile devices that you're looking through. With the mobile device you're looking through, if you saw, I had a little glass faucet attached to that.
Yes, I saw that. Yes, I saw. I mean, to me, the potentiality, I mean, I get what you're saying about the phones. The potentiality of it, I'm just taking it from my perception, is that I'm creating, well, I could give it to someone like you and say, well, I experienced this, that, and this happens. The atmosphere is like that, and this interaction, and all of, even, you know, the quantum part of it as well. And you would be able to put that all in and roll it. And then I could say to you, that is like 95% exactly as my perceptions say. I think it's fascinating, David. I don't want to take the show over. We're going to have to do another show just on this, because
absolutely, you're right. Creating someone's vision, you know, allowing someone to create their previously very, very personal world, yes, and share it, is a huge part of the future of this medium. Let me just say, yeah, I have this fun way of reaching into, you know, and augmenting the world that my phone or whatever is in. Yes. Eventually, right now, of course, people's obsession since the beginning was with a headset that allows you to turn around and have 360-degree immersive, and that will come, but that's much more expensive than what we have with virtual reality right now, because basically it requires there being cameras here and here, and you being able to see the real world and the animated things without having to look through a small space.
Brilliant.
But then you really can, and it can get closer and closer to reality, or to someone's less than real vision of what they'd like to see. I can play with gravity. I can how real it is, and how fantastic it. I mean, it's sort of it's a little bit like what the Roger Rabbit worlds, the Toontown, right?
Well, yes, yeah. I mean, I do exactly. Yes, the film. You know, for me, and we really mustn't stay on this because I'm selfish. It's my show, and we've got lots to talk about. We're going to do another show. We're going to talk about this one show. However, but to me, the potentiality, when I saw what you did, and I'm talking to you, the creator of that, and the artistic potentiality that you could do, and I'm like, but that's in real reality. I understand about the goggles and about, you know, the games, because my children had them. I used to love playing. I think it was Doom and shooting everybody and all that. But that, it makes it brings into our how do I word this? Because I'm not a scientist. In our 3D world, this alternative reality we can experience, being fully aware. It is just that, augmented. It is magic, and we are like alchemists, and we're just playing and enjoying the experience. Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. You know what? Since you're mentioning art and artists, and since it's easier for you to click that 3-screen share button again, a piece of art just came up on the screen, and I'm going to ask you to show that, because in a wacky way, it's a collaboration between me and a sculptor.
Yes.
The construction kit lets you build physically realistic augmented reality scenes into your real world. LiDAR sensors and iPhone and iPad Pros see the shape of your space, so virtual objects seamlessly collide, slide, bounce, roll across surfaces, and disappear behind real ones. It's magic. Toss and tack objects into the scene, and even build working contraptions, while undo buttons let you delete recent items and experiment until your scene is just how you want it.
So that,
David, I love it. We need to stop talking about it, or we're not going to talk about the 3 areas we want to talk about. We'll do another show. You got me all excited here. We need to just put that science to one side.
No problem.
Fantastic. Right. I'm really excited. I'm going to book you just for this next time. Right. That's mind-blowing. My mind's going here. I've got all these questions, and I need to stop, because we do have a sort of structured conversation, and it's my conversation with you. And you've chosen with me 3 areas: forbidden ideas.
Yes.
music, which is your love. I love music too. And gravity. Now, guys, we're going to do gravity last because I have a fascination, and I've had it for a few decades with gravity. And for my truth, gravity is not what we've been told. And David is going to bring forth his theory on that. However,
it's Einstein's theory. I can't take all the credit.
No, well, that's okay. You can take some. It's fine. I'm sure he's not going to take you to court and sue you. It's a case of, but before we get there, we need to put the foundation in first. First of all, David is married to Gail, who was on my show last week. Gail Hyson. Sorry, I just call her Gail. I never give her a surname. Who is, she's been on my show a few times, who is the most amazing. She's a psychic medium. She's a remote viewer. She's all the above. She is a super duper powered up being that also has helped bring forward through being Dean Rading's guinea pig. And, I all say that. You're the guinea pig. Only because I'm jealous. And brought forward and assisted in the development of this area of science. But we're not going to go on to Gail because we did her last week. But from that, we did that. Was it last week? Yeah, it was last week. It was a few days ago, but I did that. And so she is the paranormal with the biggest heart you could ever imagine. Now I've laid the foundation for that. Before we go into our three, it's like Mastermind in England. We had a show called, Mastermind. You have three chosen areas. Before we go into the three chosen areas, David, please would you share with the audience your experience of spotting a UFO?
Oh, there we go. Sure. I had a very unexplained experience camping along Lake Sonoma a couple of years ago. I'm always looking at things in the sky, and I'm not. But I have. By the way, I have to say, because this is in a way the beginning of our discussion of forbidden ideas. I come from a very materialist community. Spent 13 years at MIT, and at MIT, when someone asks, "What's your sign?" we say, "Stop."
Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
we're naturally a little bit skeptical. Many of us are atheists. Many of us are can I say it? Turd disturbers.
Yes. Yes.
Finding out things that nobody else wants to know, and or disturbing people's reality with the truth sometimes. So nonetheless, I'm not a mean skeptic. I'm not a Penn and Teller type whose goal in life is to prove that whatever you saw wasn't real. I'm about looking at evidence, which is what a real scientist does.
Yeah.
So when I look in the sky, I say, I identify that. Mm-hmm. I haven't identified that yet, but it's got flashing lights on, and it might be a helicopter, and so on. And what the heck is that? But so it's not that they're UFOs, but they're for now unidentified. So here I'm looking at the sky on the lake, and there's something traveling at a medium high velocity, pretty clearly very far away. A dot, a white dot.
Yeah.
Traveling at a constant velocity, pretty obviously a satellite, and then it stops in its tracks. And it's not what I thought it was.
Wow.
It's sort of, and all bets are off now. Is it close? Is it far? How could something that far away make a dead stop? It's that scene in the Spielberg movie where everyone says, "Holy smoke," Yeah. So,
I would have said holy shit if that was me. Yeah, but go on.
I did. And the people I was camping with said, I said, that was more than a second ago. And we're watching, and then it starts to turn around, and then it starts to glow like absolutely nothing I've ever seen in the sky before.
Wow.
Not flashing a light, but kind of.
Yeah.
And and turning around and heading west. And it's like, holy smoke, did everyone see that? And I'm, and it's dark and there's nothing really we can film. And I'm saying, yes, my people, finally. You're
Well, we have a bit of a joke that Gail set up. Because I'm waiting to be taken away from this reality to go to another one. And Gail says she ain't going nowhere. So I can be your second wife. And when this craft comes in to take us off, me and you can go off. And I promise to send a telepathic communication of what we experience out there and the wonders of the universe. But
that's
going,
fair.
It's a fair deal. That had to, I mean, I said to you before when we had the private chat, not many people realize, they see a USO, that UFO, they don't, the discernment doesn't kick in straight away. And they never even think to ask a question that I asked you, and I ask others in the experiences group I have, is that you saw this unidentified flying object and it performed and broke all the Newtonian laws, everything, your core belief, your scientist and all that. You saw that, and I would say, you can, correct me if I'm wrong, it did a little dance for you, a performance to really show you I'm here. At that point, did you, or since having this experience, have that recognition that was for me to see personally?
That's a great question. And I did. The more I thought about it, I was like, well, okay, is this someone with a lighter than air visual or drone or something? But what is it doing over deserted Lake Sonoma where we're the only people camping here? How could this possibly be a prank?
Yeah.
But it is a solo performance.
Yes.
It's an almost empty theater. And
yes.
And it's a little bit like, I think you may have seen Aerial Phenomena.
Yes.
And that's this amazing thing where 60-odd, mostly school children in Rwanda, see this thing in the sky and then see beings outside of the ship and are making eye contact with them and trying to describe what they saw. Half of them spent the rest of their lives making drawings, a little bit like you.
Yes.
So where was
that? And that was with Dr. Max. So I mean, there's another scientist, yeah.
Well, he came up later. First, it was all these children and this BBC guy. And here, let's get to Forbidden Ideas, because here's the guy in the BBC who is filming the most extraordinary footage ever filmed by the BBC, and the BBC's reaction is, "Time for you to retire. You're fired. Goodbye. We'll never talk to you again."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Until Dr. Mac comes in I mean, I would say back in the day, he was one of the major forerunners. I watched his documentary. Obviously, I see what them children saw, and exactly what they experienced, what they drew and everything. It resonates 100% with my experiences.
They're so similar that it seems like that's pretty significant.
Yes, I would look at that. I've always loved social experiments and testing things out. And someone said to me the other day, "Shall I take this bit of symbology as evidence as blah, blah, blah?" I said, "No, you need to test it out. Minimum of 5 times. If it repeats itself, if it keeps repeating, there's a possibility." And then really what you've got to do is try and deconstruct it and destroy it, your theory. And if it still doesn't shake, I'd hold it.
I love that attitude. Yes, that's a great science attitude.
That's my attitude. And I've had to have that attitude all through this experience because of the things that I experience are just really not in 3D. And I've had to use that perception. So, I'm coming back to you now. You are this MIT scientist.
But I have to. There's this thing about the forbidden ideas.
Yes,
because it's a part of daily life that most people were trained to ignore.
Yes.
Let me uh, uh, gaslighting has come way back into vogue.
Yes.
Pretending that you didn't see the thing that you and the
Yes.
person next to you just saw.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought we were at peak gaslighting last year, but it's gotten even more intense.
Yeah, I mean, I think many people do collectively recognize now gaslighting, and because of we've had the last couple of years, we have seen global Stockholm syndrome, global, and the gaslighting was coming that way. And I mean, I'm trained in that.
Yes, Americans have unique training in gaslighting every day at school.
Yes,
and this is going to be a forbidden idea if ever there was one.
Yes.
But we are trained in a public school under a constitution whose First Amendment says the Congress shall make no law to establish religion.
Yes.
And they're forced or encouraged or coerced to say one nation under God.
Yes.
Every
I
morning.
hear you. I mean,
and so let me break that down for just a second.
Okay.
A fun part of the forbidden ideas, right? So let's unpack it. Atheism is either forbidden or does not exist.
Yes. 6-
and 7-year-olds can't be agnostics, right? Or atheists. When a proper Christian, and you could argue that I'm a more proper Christian than the Pope in terms of what my moral beliefs, way more, but proper Christians have to sit by and pretend that there's no one sitting there in the class next to them who doesn't believe exactly what they believe. And so really what the truth is, the atheist has to put his hand on his heart and lie.
Yes.
The agnostic child, which is all the other children, because unless they've been heavily coerced by adults, they're not the supreme being oriented by nature.
Yeah.
They all have to say, when we're told to say what we have to say, we should put our hands on our hearts. And people wonder why all of these people in America are professional liars taking the fifth and lying under oath. We have most of the justices in our main court lied under oath with their hand on their heart. Well, they were trained from age 6.
It shows you the depth of these forbidden ideas we're talking about now. The segue went in beautifully, streamlined in there, David. Well done. It just shows you the hidden, let's say, the hidden reality we're in that is now being exposed. And I think it's being exposed and spoke about, especially in alternative media, which in my mind has taken over mainstream media, and people are starting to realize this, the gaslighting, the Stockholm syndrome. Yes. And I know it's possible because what I was saying earlier on, when part of my role before was I would, people that had been gaslighted or in the Stockholm syndrome due to serious crime or domestic violence, whatever, it was my job as the counselor to deconstruct that. So they'd come out the other side and go, wow, I believed that. Wow, it wasn't true. That was someone else's belief. And so I've seen, through my groups that I run when I was in my job role, I've seen it is possible, guys, to step out, deprogram. And I think that is, these forbidden ideas, as I said earlier on, if we'd been, in the dark ages, we would have been burnt to death for doing this.
Absolutely. I have to, while we're talking cult deprogramming, I have to say, Gail's father was always a helper of people, and he was atheistic too, and he was not attracted to any cult, with one exception that Gail may have told you about when Werner Erhard came with Mind Dynamics. But that wasn't a cult then; that was just an amazing training class. But anyway, Jerry, Gail's father, rescued 2 young girls, a whole family actually, that had been embedded in a cult, and they brought them home, and I met them, and I said hi. They looked fragile. I said, hi, what's your name? And they had this terrible look, like, why did he start with such a hard question?
Bless. Oh, bless.
Because they had been renamed in the cult.
Yeah.
And that was a forbidden idea, that their name was what the name that they
I'm
had
with
before.
you. I mean, it's all about, for me personally, going through the career I went through, which was crime. No, I'm not a criminal. It was criminology, and it was working with victims of serious crime. You could see how another being, through belief systems and coercion, can not only take away the personal autonomous being, the identity of what they've come into experience, but do a bit of magic, and like an illusory magic, and get them to believe something they're not, or to believe something is happening that's not. And that has been, I know when I was a child, and I'm not that old, like 200 years ago, when I was a child, I would question everything. So I was always getting hit at school, discipline, hit at home, hit wherever I went, I got hit. It was just, and I was, you can't question that. You're going to burn in hellfire, or you're just, insane or something. And till eventually you can see how I went through a period of taking on board all of these beliefs that people were telling me, but something inside me kept resisting it. And so I was a rebel all the way through. However, it's when we see these forbidden ideas, I mean, I've got to, because of the experience you shared, what used to be when I was younger, was another forbidden idea was extraterrestrial beings, in my case, talking to the dead. I mean, it was forbidden. And I came in talking to them, and I thought it was normal. And then I'm cutting this short, telling other people, and then it got about. And my mother promptly took me to a psychiatrist, and I was promptly diagnosed with schizophrenia and put on heavy antipsychotic drugs as a teenager, because it was forbidden. It was forbidden. And now, obviously, I'm older, and I can see it, how we've moved forward. So if anyone in the audience doesn't quite understand what forbidden ideas are, there's another example of a forbidden.
Yes, and by the way, Yale may have told you she had a rather similar experience, but and it's funny how she had a grandmother who did talk to the people at the foot of the bed, but it was closer to her Eastern European tradition, so no one hospitalized her for it,
Yes. Yeah, I mean, in my case, I was in an Irish family, and I suppose you could call it, middle class situation, and it wasn't done. It wasn't done. So, I think it's really good that we can raise some forbidden ideas, because I think what's coming is just my truth. It could change at any time as more information comes in. What's coming is more forbidden ideas are going to be exposed.
Here's a painful, in some ways well-known, in some ways well-hidden forbidden idea, that there are institutions, we don't have to name them all.
No, we don't.
But they not only convince you to give them your money, but they convince families to leave their children alone with them, and they bugger them.
Yeah, I know. And
it's a forbidden idea to say they should all be in prison, and this highly profitable enterprise that doesn't pay any taxes in the U.S. should be shut down. There is.
I mean, as I said, we could do another show on just forbidden ideas, because, it's extensive. It's in every aspect of what we call daily life that we've gone through. However, we are now deconstructing that. Collectively, it's what is hidden will be revealed. And this is the work that we're doing. Yes. So, and I can see it now when I listen to other podcasts and things like that. I can see so many forbidden ideas being deconstructed, exposed, and more people are now resonating. Well, wow,
you're so right.
Never realized that before, and boom, it's good.
And it is, and in a weird way, it is, we can thank the technology that's always a dual-edged sword, because back when we were growing up and there were 3 TV networks, there was an extremely high probability that a certain idea would never become public whatsoever.
Never. I mean, the internet, what it's done for us. I mean, people say, oh, you know, social media's bad, internet's bad. I say, listen, you can get fire. You can either cook with fire and eat and keep yourself warm, or you can go burn your house down and burn yourself. It's how you use the application that you have. So for me, you know, there are people out there using the internet and all, you know, the media for, well, we see it, don't we? I don't watch the news.
And yet, that's another great example, because the real demagogues on the internet, it's not the tech. I mean, the technology is amplifying them, but the kind of evil that they do is them. And we have to say, I have a friend, a dear friend. He's going to be on Yale's show soon, named David Biedny, who coined a wonderful term: addiction to deception. Yeah. The truth is, people don't just conform; they love being lied to.
Yes. Yes.
And it makes them feel better. They love being lied to. Again, from age 6 and on, very few. I was the exception. I wish I had a recording of me saying, you know, having adults convince children to say things that they don't believe every morning is going to come back to haunt you. I didn't say you might have we might wind up with a Supreme Court that's mostly liars, but that's exactly what I was thinking.
You know what? You just, you know, reminded me of something, how this works. And this is from my personal, another analogy is, I remember being small and believing in this Father Christmas. And I don't have a problem for children believing in, it's magic. I love it. You know, gets them into alchemy.
However,
you're not Father Christmas, so stop it now. You can't just pull that one on me. You can't. All right. I want DNA. I want DNA. Anyway, stop it. You're naughty. And my brother, he was a couple of years older than me, God rest him. And he sat me down and he said, I'm going to tell you something. And I trusted my elder brother. And he said, Father Christmas is not real. At first, I was mortified, but I trusted my brother. He would say it as it is. He would not lie. I trusted him like I trusted my intuition. And so he told me Father Christmas didn't exist. So I went to another family member and said, Billy said Father Christmas. And the adult said, he's a liar.
Yeah, of course.
And yes, he does. But I believed my brother. And that, as a small child,
are you even sobbing as you complained? Did you cry when your brother told you?
Yes, I did. He shattered my world. He shattered it. But I knew
you want to be lied to, and they know it deep down.
But I knew he was telling the truth. I knew somehow. I didn't have the intellectual understanding, and then when the adult said, no, he's a liar, and I'm thinking, I'm not thinking, it's intuitive. My brother never lied to me. I knew he was telling. I was a psychic child. I could read him. And then I read the adult and I knew the adult's energy was lying. That opened for me from that. I was young. You've got to be like 6 or something. My brother was a bastard. He spoiled everything. He shattered. Thank you, dear brother. And then I started to really use my intuition to work on that energy when a lie was being said. You see? So I was helped by my brother to break out of what you call that false reality.
Those key moments in childhood, you conform, you don't build any emotional intelligence. No. You, at 6, had a clearer idea of what credibility is than the adults who were trying to train you.
Yes, I got that then. Not saying later on I didn't get, coerced and gaslighted. I did. But that was a really potential experience for me that I could draw on later on down in life. Once I'd gone into the system and the system had got me. It was inside, and then it started to come back up later on. But it was I'd say my psychic, my paranormal. And because I could tell if someone was lying. I can do it now. But it's, if it will switch itself on automatically. But I didn't get addicted to being lied to. Every time the adult lied, in my head, I'm going, you're lying. And block. You're lying.
But you're exceptional and right. They'd love to just medicate you and get rid of you.
Yeah, I tell you. So, but we're going to move on. We've got.
You froze there for a moment.
Oh, did I freeze? Am I back?
Yes, now you're back.
I'm back. Sorry about freezing on you. No, we've done a good start on the forbidden ideas. I want to go to part 2. I have no idea what you're going to say. We're going to talk about music. You're a scientist, you're a UFO experiencer, and you're married to Gail. I know music has had an immense influence on all of my experiences. I'll just preempt this with that, is when I do my creative art, I love classical music. I've always loved classical music, okay? And I paint with classical music. I create with classical music. I even loved, is it the Georgian chants from way back in medieval? I love music and tones and the solfeggio, and I've got a vast. So, but my love of music, I can relate that to, it inspires my creativity. So that's me with music. How has music influenced you in what you do?
Well, okay. So, for starters, I mentioned that I did my thesis in understanding how I play jazz and how I behave, if you will, when someone says, play that in the style of Fats Waller. Yeah. So that really becomes, so to me, to me, music and silent film and all this whole class of things that appear to be designed to make me laugh. Ragtime was like that. The first music that I discovered at age 12 was Scott Joplin Ragtime. And I was very lucky that 2 years later, The Sting came out and suddenly Ragtime became a big fad trend. And it was everywhere, but it seems like comical, right? It seems it's got surprises built into it in the form of syncopations and so on. And then Fats Waller would actually do comedy the whole time. And once I discovered that, there was no turning back. And he played these tenths on his left hand. I actually grew my left hand to be larger than my right, noticeably, during this period.
Go you.
Determined to play the tenths on the piano, that I was not accepting anything less.
Yes.
And my best buddy from those days with smaller hands was so jealous, but I've still got it. And it's a meditation. I'm touching the souls of these great artists from 100 years ago. I sort of developed the musical taste of a 90-year-old when I was 14.
Yeah. I was classical.
And then classical, jump ahead, I meet Marvin Minsky, and I won't tell you the whole story, but basically I think I'm in there to interview him for a documentary. And he says, oh, I don't know if I want to be arguing with Joe. And what else have you got? And I said, well, I always wanted to take the way I play jazz and make an algorithm out of it. He says, you're my student now. And you go to Marvin's house and he's got a dozen keyboards, pianos, organs, an original Kurzweil. And then he starts improvising a fugue, a Bach-style fugue that you've never heard before.
Wow.
And you realize that it's another forbidden idea that Bach and Mozart come from reading sheet music. That everyone improvised something in those days.
Oh my God, yes.
And it's a lie that you can't play that without a score. And it's inside you. And darling, Marvin was surrounded by people who loved him, who suddenly sat down and started improvising chorales and
I resonate with that. I've got to jump back to what you said earlier on. is like when you were going through this, you could feel the souls of the people that created this music, that played this instrument. And it's exactly the same when I listen to, I used to listen to a lot of Beethoven. There was something about Beethoven, I don't know what it was, but every time with all the classicals and any music I listen, there are some contemporary artists today that Pandora's Journey, it's on YouTube, and I resonate with that. But I feel you used a good analogy. You said the souls. I feel the souls. I feel as I feel their creativity come through me, I then it sort of like merges or permeates my creative energy, and it's like a booster, and I create out mine. So it's a joining of creativity. Does that resonate with you?
It does. That's it's such a hard thing to put your finger on. But when I also connect it to laughter. And when you tell a joke, or when you repeat a joke, you're making the person that you're with feel the thrill that you felt when you heard it. Yeah. And your souls meet.
Always laughter at the same time. But I can do it now. Well, I try. When I was younger, if I found something funny, I would try to tell the joke. But I found it so fucking hilarious, I couldn't get it out. That was the type I was. And I'm mastering it a bit better because I call in the being saying, help me out here, please, and calm it down. Calm it down. And I start laughing because I know what I'm going to say is hilarious. So, yeah, I agree with you. A lot of laughter as well.
Yes. And there's something about withholding and then releasing. Yeah. Right. So many things, breathing in and out on a harmonica. So much of what music is suspend, release, suspend, release. Yes. It's a variant of your breathing pattern. You can't survive without doing the one and then the other again.
It reminds me, it's like the breathing circuit: expansion, retraction, expansion, and to me that is the universe. That's science. It's just
in jazz, it's in swing, it's pa on the left hand, and all the forms that it takes.
But do you think? Let's just talk what we only know about. We can't speak about anyone else's personal beliefs, but between me and you. And our love of music, even though it may be a different genre, do you think it's sort of like the fuel, like I just said, for our creativity and what we do? Because we work with it, we go with the flow of it, and we connect to you could say we connect to the ancestors. I think Beethoven is, his body is dead somewhere, or he may be on another timeline. But it's like that's another area, David. You're the scientist. Since studying quantum physics, I don't believe at the moment. My truth is there is no reincarnation. We experience it on different timelines. That's the quantum world. So that's where I am. So Beethoven is on another timeline, still doing his thing. And
that's a nice information footprint that includes his scores and all of these fantastic performances.
And we can resonate and connect in, like the law of attraction, your highest excitement. So, I go maybe to Beethoven or whatever, and I'm connecting. And also I do it with the art. I tell you, do you know how many times I'm painting when I'm doing the Egyptian canvases on it? I go, Mr. Angelo, where are you? Van Gogh, come in. But Picasso, don't come near me because I don't like Picasso. Don't come in. I call in Van Gogh. I call them in to give me their creative spirit.
In learning music, and I've learned most of my music by ear, it's a very premeditated version of that, where Thelonious Spunk, when I discovered his solo work, it just made me laugh out loud. And I just wanted to be able to tell that joke. Aww. And so I have I have a bunch of skills through my fantastic parents, but I can't be bullied or humiliated. So the fact that if I am trying to play something and I get a wrong note, or God forbid, I'm singing it out loud, but if I hit a wrong note, there's only 10 other wrong notes I have to go through before I'll get to the right one.
I'm with you.
It's all architecturally built in as learning rather than failure, if you will. And,
I agree. There's no such thing as failure. I've got to jump in again because I resonate with something you said slightly earlier. Is I used to play the piano recorder, anything I get my hands on, and I played it by ear, and it was with my brother. We started off, and my parents always had a piano in the house, and I'd hear something, I'd hear a tune, and my favorite when I was a child, for some unknown reason, was Greensleeves.
Uh-huh.
Do you know Greensleeves? Alas, my love, you do.
Yeah,
it's old, yeah. And I'd hear, and then my hand, and I used to say, stretch, my little fat fingers, stretch, I'll do it. And me and my brother would play chopsticks because I couldn't stretch everywhere, And then it went on to recorders and things like that, and I'd hear it. And there was nothing I couldn't play. And funny thing is...
Why did you say used to play piano? How dare you?
Because I don't have a piano anymore. I've just got a friend of mine has just delivered last month a beautiful violin because I had a violin. Yeah. And it's in my front room. But anyway, going back, I could... Yes. In secondary school in England, it's called secondary school. Back in the day, you went in about 12 and you were kicked out of school to go to work at 16 back in the day. So we had music classes, okay? But then we were being forced to read music, to read the sheet. I couldn't read it. I got a couple, but my natural thing is, let me hear it. So I would then play something on a recorder from my hearing. I'd be told off.
Isn't that cruel? And I think that's more forbidden ideas. They don't want you to improvise. They don't want you to speak. They want you to recite.
Yes, exactly as you should. Exactly. Yes. Yes.
And it's cruel, and it shrinks your mind. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I feel the fact that I don't sight read easily makes me feel quite illiterate sometimes.
Yeah.
But the truth is, to say I can write but I can't speak, that's wrong.
I know. But at the time, I was like, well, fuck it then. I won't do it. And I got kicked out of the orchestra, and which was a good thing, actually, because it was a Christian school.
No, I think, good for you, yes. Getting kicked out, and again, escaping gaslighting, exploring forbidden ideas. I was thrown out of both first and third grade. I was thrown out of summer camp.
Oh yeah, there you go. Same here.
Feathers in my cap.
So I mean, so you can see there as a teenager what my brother did for me as a child. That was still in me. So when they said no, you can't improvise, you can't. I thought somehow I can display it. I don't need to read that. And when they said, no, you must do this, in my head, it was fuck it. And I walked out.
Oh, I have to say, especially looping this back to science, I have a book with the MIT Press called Machine Models of Music from Mozart to Minsky.
Really?
And because my co-editor, really, he was the leader, Stefan Schwanauer, realized that in addition to my thesis, there were all these amazing papers where people are describing how people think literally about music, how people decide what key something is in, how people decide what time signature something is in. All these gems, and we wound up collecting them into a book for MIT Press. Some were AI papers. Some were one of them is an algorithm that Mozart came up with for rolling the dice 13 times and getting a 13 measure ditty. And
Yeah.
the deal was, because you were rolling dice, but they were all harmonically equivalent, there were over 1 trillion Mozart pieces built into this algorithm that he wrote. He wasn't afraid of machines. He loved mechanizing.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, yeah, I hear what you say. I do hear what you say. I mean, again, we could do another show on music. So we got to stop that one there. So we're already booking ahead for the Forbidden Idea show and the music show. We've done that. Right. We're coming to our third one, where this is the one. I'm going to get myself a cigarette. I'm going to sit back because I'm ready. You're the scientist. No pressure.
So one of the gravity.
Yes, gravity.
One of the thrilling things in the context of forbidden ideas, we think, yeah, these are things about beliefs, or it's easy to have a forbidden idea in the political realm because people are influenced by social things. Surely there can't be forbidden ideas in science because that's objective reality. And there are ways of testing and consensus and whatnot. And it's so funny when you drill down on Einstein's theory of gravity. It is a classic version of that, where it's easy to find a physicist who, well, here's the funny thing. Minsky was very fond of Marvin Minsky was the inventor of artificial intelligence, and I was really honored to have him as my mentor. And early, in the 50s, but also in the 70s when I met him, people would say, well, all we have to do is get computers that can do logic as well as a person, and it'll be able to play chess better than people. A lot of people say, no, I don't ever have. But it's about logic. And Marvin would politely say, people only use logic as a last resort. And I thought he was kidding around, but it's absolutely true. And Professor Schenk demonstrated it very beautifully with algorithms. If I say John went to the restaurant, he ordered a hamburger, he paid the waitress, and he left, and I ask you, did John eat a hamburger? You'll say yes, because you don't, even though I didn't say John ate a hamburger.
Yeah, I'm with you. No, I'm with you. Yeah.
We think in narratives. We think in stories. We believe narratives and stories. We don't believe facts. We don't use logic.
Yes, love it. Go on. Get into the gravity. Get in there.
So people have inconsistent. So what people really want to believe that their minds are self-consistent, and Marvin was very articulate about the fact that they're not. They're not close. There are all of these compartments, and it's especially evident when you see a physicist who's been told that Einstein figured out well over 100 years ago that Newton was wrong, and that objects are not attracted to the Earth by a force.
No.
And well, what is it? If you go back, he said Einstein's happiest moment was standing in an elevator and realizing that he got heavier when it started going up, and he got lighter when it started going down, and that what we think of as gravity is really us not understanding that we're on a platform that's accelerating, that the Earth that looks so solid that we use as the ground and the ground truth of all our ideas about motion is accelerating upward and pushing against us and convincing us that somehow we're being pulled down. That's a lie. Nothing is pulled toward the Earth, but no one can believe. It's just very hard to believe that the Earth's surface is accelerating outward at 22 miles an hour per second, like a race car. It doesn't make any sense. And their minds start to break up, and they say, well, you're saying the Earth's getting bigger. And I'm like, no, or Einstein is like, no, I'm saying that the Earth's surface is accelerating outward everywhere. And saying, well, what does that mean? Why doesn't it crash into the moon? And Einstein has this great answer. The Earth is constant in size in meters, right? It's the same number of meters in diameter that it was a minute ago and yesterday. But who says that a meter isn't longer than it was yesterday? A meter, and he called it space-time curvature. And it's a variation of what he figured out with light in the special field of relativity that was pretty hard to accept. I mean, he got gaslighted a lot. They called relativity Jewish science. Stay away from that.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. Keep going. I'm loving this because it resonates.
The core of Einstein's theory that people have trouble, physicists even, have a lot of trouble accepting. What we call gravity is a fictitious force. It is meaning, and you see that anytime you're in a vehicle that stops and it looks like all the things in the vehicle are accelerating forward, but really it's the car that's pulling back. If your frame of reference is accelerating, you get confused about what's really accelerating. It's natural, but we're so sure that the ground is stationary and that the ball I just dropped is moving that we cannot accept that this. Where am I? That this is the stationary thing, and the Earth has pushed me upward relative to it and pushed the table in front of me and everything else relative to it. It's the only thing. It's called free fall because it's the only thing that's not being pushed in the room when I release it. And you can measure. So
you're saying, hold on, for the audience, and let's digest this.
Yes.
Gravity. I've always thought, for some reason, I said gravity. I was taught at school gravity was a powerful force, just like you said. And I always had this sort of in my head, no, it's the weakest. Nothing. It's a nothing force. That was my child understanding, and that I've gone through.
Weakest compared to what?
Well, I thought it was the weakest compared to the magnetic field. And, I did, a lot of what Einstein said about, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know terminologies, space-time and the curvature, and how he talked about all other energies and their effect on other objects or planets. When I was listening to all of that, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know the terminologies. Something was telling me that gravity, as I said to you the other week, when you said you were going to talk about it, it wasn't as strong as everyone thought. So I think I'd stepped into where you are, and I was disbelieving what they were telling me gravity was. Does that make sense?
So yes, it does. But there's two or three things to unpack there. First off, I have an intuition that fits well with scientists. Physicists routinely do say that gravity is a weak force, and that the gravitational constant G, which is 10 to the minus 14 or whatever, yes, it's a small number, and the only reason that we feel it strongly is because the Earth is so massive and so dense compared to everything else in the solar system, even the sun. It's not more massive, but it's more dense than anything else around. But in another sense, because the Earth is massive and dense, it is strong here. Really, 1G, that's 30, we English call it 32 feet per second for second. We can also, I like to think of it as 22 miles an hour per second. So if you're in a race car that's going 66 miles an hour in 3 seconds, you're, and certainly if you're a Caucasian, your hair is flying backward, right?
G-force.
Right. That's 1G is very powerful. So in that sense, it's not a weak force in our daily lives.
I'm with you. But it
is the opposite of what we think. The things that we think are falling are stationary, and the things that we think are solidly anchored to the stationary ground are being pushed upward at 22 miles an hour.
What you're saying is it's flipping it.
It's a fictitious force, and you'll find so many physics books that forget to mention this key aspect of Einstein's theory as they try and snow you with math to convince you that
I'm with you. No, I resonate. It resonates with me, and hearing it beautifully put by yourself, and you're the scientist, and thank you very much. In layman's terms, it resonates with this intuitive thing that there was something not right with that. I mean, yes, I agree. Einstein proved Newton wrong. However, I've got to ask you, out of curiosity, another forbidden idea. When I was a child, we were told, not be curious. Do not be curious. curiosity killed the cat. I taught my children, please be curious. So here comes my curiosity. What you've just stated there, your theory with gravity, which I so resonate with.
I'll take credit, but it's Einstein's theory.
Well, that's fine. You can have some credit. He's not going to mind. You know, he's sharing his caring. Let's go. Does quantum physics confirm what you've just stated?
I think it's a separate thing. And I don't claim to understand quantum physics as well as I understand relativity and gravity. So I would say quantum physics is pretty weird. I think quantum physics may be, and other dimensions may be closer to helping explain what people like Yale do. She's a lot like that lady they find in The Matrix, living in an apartment, but you know, if you've taken the red pill, you can visit it. That may, you know, if I think of those things as not being terminally unexplained, if you will, but of having a scientific basis that's very poorly understood. And yes, if you can, it's.
Well, I'm going to jump in. I'm not a quantum physicist.
Yes.
However, I studied it.
Yes.
I love Dr. Quantum. If you haven't gone on YouTube and watched Dr. Quantum, do it. It's the simplest. It's made for idiots, and trust me, it opens your mind.
No,
and
I always do that. Yes.
You know, looking at the little bit, you know, I know about quantum physics and understanding how, you know, the particle to the wave, the oscillation of different things. The table is vibrating at a different, and this is happening. All of that. I'm not going to go into that because I'm not a scientist. I'm not a quantum physicist. I just have a layman's, you know, decades of researching into it. And the reason I did is because of the personal experiences I was having, i.e. seeing dead people. They don't like to be called dead because they're not, but I'm using it. And having experiences of what is labeled extraterrestrials and going off and UFOs and all that. So because my life experiences broke down every Newtonian law ever. It broke it. So he went to one side. And then I studied some Einstein, but I also did, you know, all the other, you know, the classical sciences all the way back to find, you know, how I could fit into this reality. Because I just didn't fit in with the Matrix. I didn't fit in. And when I got to quantum physics and knowing what Einstein said about quantum physics, you know, the spooky action at the distance and all that.
Yes.
Now you've explained to me your theory on gravity. I may not be able to articulate this, but my truth at the moment is quantum physics does validate yours. I'm not a quantum physicist, so send the hate mail to somebody else. Because how it works with potentiality, but it works with the, what's the word? Oscillation of energy, frequency. You know, I don't know the terminologies. I'm not a scientist. You know, like you said, there's no gravity. It's just the Earth is moving, and we're getting a resistance. Does that make?
It's not that there's no gravity, and I want to say when we say something's a fictitious force, we just mean that the force is in the opposite direction that we thought. It's the same magnitude. That's
what I'm talking about. Force fields. Can I use that for me in the lane?
No, actually, and that was the thing that Newton. One of the funnest things, and by the way, I'm writing I've got a manuscript called The Secret Truth About Gravity that's got quotes from scientists about it. And one of the most severe critics of Newton's theories of gravity, who thought, oh, you would have to be insane. I don't have the quote in front of me, but it's a ridiculous, impossible idea that objects could be acted on at a distance and pushed without physical contact. Only a moron. And the person who wrote that criticism was Isaac Newton. He thought that there was
you just reminded me. Let me jump in.
We're terrible.
I know we're terrible, but this is normal. This is a conversation.
Please.
I've got to do this. You've just said it. it reminded me of entanglement. You said nothing can happen without a force being pushed on it. In quantum physics, you go from the observer effect, from the wave to the particle. When the observer puts its force onto it, it turns into a particle. But then you've got the entanglement where two forces come together. That's what I was trying to say. And God bless you for bringing it back so I could express myself.
That's good. The observer effect is very important in the quantum theory.
Yeah, that's it. So but
here's the funny thing, just to close off on the fictitious force thing. So Newton's idea that there's something pulling, some invisible pushing thing pulling down on this, making it attractive to the Earth. He said there's something absolutely false and ridiculous about that, and it turns out that there is. The force is when it hits the ground. The thing that's accelerating is the ground. The ground, and this is hard to accept, and it sounds crazy why so few physicists say it out loud, but the ground accelerates so fast as if the Earth had doubled in size in the last 15 minutes.
I'm with
it's
you.
accelerating outward. So the thing that is so this has no forces on it when it's falling. It has forces on it when it's
that makes sense, David, because I remember learning that, I don't know what it is, but the Earth is spinning on its axis at so many thousand whatever Trevors and going through the galaxy. And I remember thinking way back, well, you know, if I put, like, I don't know, a jelly bean on a tennis ball or something, whatever, and I shoot it out at such a force, this jelly bean or whatever is really going to hold down on my tennis ball, not because of anything, but the force that I'm projecting at. Does that make sense to you? Or could you say it a bit more scientifically?
Yes. And well, I would say this is a bit more like, what if your tennis ball and your jelly bean were doubling in size every minute? It would look like, or specifically, it would look like they were stuck together, like they were attracting each other when they weren't.
No, they weren't. That's what I'm saying. Oh, I love you, David, for explaining what I'm saying, because I'm not a scientist. That's my perception to understand gravity. I've got to say, David, I can do another show. We'll do another show on gravity, I'm telling you, because I so love this.
Video I would show you if we were doing this longer, but I've tried to.
We'll do it on another show. We'll do your video. We'll do it on another show, definitely, because I think as we are all shifting into a new paradigm and a new way, as we deconstruct what we think was true, is not, including forbidden ideas, that we're going to need the creative beings like yourself and what you're doing with your virtual reality. We go forward not by using old tools, but new inventions, new creativity to go forward. So we're going to do other shows. However, I'm going to put it back. To end the show, I've got to put it back because I could talk to you forever. You are the most easiest scientist ever to speak to. I'm telling you, you are. I have one question. As a scientist, please tell me, on the back of what we've just discussed about gravity and everything else, when I was younger, as children, we were all a bit pagan, obviously, as you do. And
you mean because we're born that way?
Yeah, hold on. Of course, hold on. What would happen is, and I'm telling you, it happened. And everyone that was with me, so there would be one at the head, one at the foot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, including the victim. You'd lay on the floor. I don't know if it's in America, but this was in UK.
Okay.
This is what kids got up to when we didn't have a TV. And so you got one person laying on the floor, on the ground, on the grass. Each person, one at the head, one at the feet, 2 at the sides, spread out exactly, 2 fingers under each part of the body, and a mantra would start, and it has to complete the circuit. like, for example, Gloria is dead. They go, Gloria is dead, Gloria is dead, Gloria is dead, Gloria is dead, back. And then the next one. Whoever was laying down would float up. Now, David, I don't know, anyone out there has done this. We used to take turns. We learned not to tell anybody because we knew we'd be classed as witches and put up in what was called then a loony bin. We would have been sectioned beyond section. Now, I can't destroy that experience. Like, I'm picking up the bottle, watch, I'm drinking water. That's my experience. It's my truth. No one can say it didn't happen. David, that experience happened. We used to do it in lunch break down the bottom of the field. Yeah, when the teachers could see us. That happened. Could you explain that scientifically to me?
And no one was wearing brass knuckles or anything.
No one was wearing brass knuckles. No one was doing anything. We were just teenage, all-girls school, strict. But we knew to do this. We knew to do it. And it had come from the ancestors. We knew to do it, and it worked. I don't know the answer. I'm asking you. By the way, no pressure on you here, David.
I love you. I love you. I don't. And no one had a Darth Vader hand or anything. So
no, Darth Vader didn't exist back in the day. I'm 200 years old.
I just mean a metal hand, you know.
No one had any metal.
The apparently effortless thing that you're describing, but it's a mental effort. And we believed.
Hold on, we believed it could happen. We believed the potentiality that it could happen. And once we collectively experienced it once, again, my theory, try it again, we did it again. Then we changed people, we did it again. And we had this circuit, like you were talking about, the breath. So obviously now going back to later years, quantum physics, I don't know how to explain it. Quantum physics explains it to me, but I don't know how to articulate that. Any ideas?
No good ones, but plenty. But
no, there's no such thing as no good ones. All I'm saying is
what I'm saying is, so my critical faculties. So the way I see levitation, it's my name, by the way. But the way I see levitation working, and maybe some of these alien craft working, and it's not unheard of in science fiction, is that antimatter has predictable behavior, but is very hard to capture.
Yes.
If you could make the right shield, then you could, in the shrink space rather than expand it or counteract the, what we think of as the gravity. So, but that doesn't explain anything that's happening with your fingers or your minds. No. That's why.
Thank you. Hold on. I'm going to stop you there. I understand what you're saying. So it is resonating with me. I'm going to throw one more thing in before we end the show. We'll have to have another show on this. When I was a child, I can't do it now. I must have lost it. I could levitate things up. I was like Gail. I was telepathic, remote viewing as a child. It was the same. But I could levitate things up. I remember doing it as well. And that's why I have no issue with this discussion. To me, it's not forbidden. And I do know when.
But I believe this. Were there other witnesses? Would you try and encourage other people to notice this?
There was a couple of other children. I was young. However, I'm aware of when I was studying Ingo Swann and all that, long before Dean come on, because I'm old. I was aware of there were some Russians that could do this as well, the levitation. But what used to get me is they seem to be using a lot of energy to do it, and I didn't. And I tell you what, when the Matrix film came out, the first Matrix film, and I saw that, I so freaking resonated with that. about the spoon bending and all the things that were going on, I resonated because I'd experienced it. That's how I resonate. If I have, to me, there's.
I think Yale showed you a fork that she bent up.
Yeah, she bent. There you go. There you go.
Suddenly,
there is, for me, it's, I suppose really, yeah, the fork that Gail bent, it's no difference really, I could say, with levitating her body off the ground. There's no difference.
While we're on this topic, I have to mention this recurring dream.
Go on then.
It's I'm not usually alone with this, or there's people nearby, but I'm basically I realize that if I lift my feet off the ground the right way and tread water the right way, that I'm no longer in contact with the earth, that I'm floating, and it's not very far. And I would love it if someone else would notice how extraordinary this is. but it's quite exhilarating in any case. And but I think it would be a forbidden idea. I think if someone saw it happening, they would find a way to ignore it or dismiss it.
Well, no, I think if they saw you, if you brought your dream state consciousness into 3D reality and started walking on water, they'd call you Jesus, basically. They wouldn't be able to expand. However, I'm going to say, with my limited understanding of quantum physics, that it is possible, because the basics of two objects in quantum, like when I do that, you think that one object, the hand, and the other one, the hand, are touching each other. Well, in fact, they never touch. It's the magnetic field energy around when they touch.
You're not a scientist, but you're doing right out of Richard Feynman, so freaking good for you.
Well, I just whatever. And so nothing ever touches, ever. And even when you sit down, the sofa.
And you're absolutely right. In that sense, the gravitational field is so much weaker than the field that keeps our hands from going through each other.
That's where there you go. And that's where I loved the conversation on gravity, because that force between the noise you hear is the two forces touching, a bit like
air being trapped and then exploding and
accelerating it. Energies accelerating, and you're getting an outcome, a bit like what's happened in CERN. The two particles going together, you're going to get an audio that comes with it. So, but that's where it comes from for me when I go back to the gravity, when I go back. So there's a force, bring it back now, wind it back. When we used to do this as children and putting objects, letting them float, lifting them, moving them, or Gail bending a spoon. It's got to be to do with that energy force. And for me, it was personal. And with the group, it then become collective. There you go. And I remember Uri Geller being famous in the UK like 200 years ago when I was a young one. And he did this show in the UK, and he told everyone in the UK, because here in the UK, you have your program, then you have these awful adverts. So in the break, I want you all to go and get a spoon, a fork, and get your watches. And
really, oh, good.
Yeah, in the UK, he did it in the UK. So we had the break, everyone, and he said, "Have you got your forks, your whatever you got? What?" Blah blah. I said, "Yeah," and he put it out there. He did his thing, and I'm telling you, thousands of people, their forks bent, their watches stopped, their watches started. And so that's the era I go into. And then I realized that a lot of these forces, which does then relate to my experience laying down on the floor and levitating, it's a personal, energetic. And then if you go into quantum physics as to the body, and the particles and the cells, and how the wave of the frequency turns into a particle, turns into a nucleus, turns into blah, 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 and you get the physical. For me, I have no issue with what you're saying, and you've just answered my question, how I levitated. Even if I can't articulate it, it's in there. I got it. It's a light bulb moment, and I love it. I love these discussions. You know, people think because I'm what you call, I get abducted and I'm a medium, and they think that's all I'm not. And that's why when I talk to people, I know there's more to another person than what their bio says. And David, there's more to you than a scientist. There is a fountain of knowledge, data, information that's personal out there that you're sharing. And I think it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Like we're just getting started. I look forward to continuing.
Oh, we're going to continue. We're going to book a series of shows, and we're going to hit these topics again. We're going to hit forbidden ideas.
Here's the crazy thing. Every kid is born so smart and so open, and most of what they think they can't do is stuff that's been taught to them by jealous adults who don't know how wonderful and powerful they are. And I just lucked out having parents who could accept me being curious
and who you are. I'm going to add one more thing about, because you've gone back to how parents treat children. My son is an MC. I don't know what that is out there, but he raps a bit like Enema, whatever you call it out there. But anyway, whatever it's called. And when he was a lot younger, I did have a piano. I did have a piano. He's 24, nearly 3. So he would have been, I don't know, a juvenile delinquent of maybe teenager, young, 12, 13. And I had a piano, a beautiful piano. And I put him on the piano, and I said, he loved music. I already knew he loved music. He did love my classical music because I had it blasting. And I said, play some classical. And first of all, he said, I can't read music. I can't. I said, yes, you can. There's no such thing as can't. Watch Mummy. And then that program had come out, EastEnders, which I don't watch. And I listened to the theme tune. I went on the piano and I played it. And he was like, wow, you can do that. Do you know, I can't remember the name of this piece, classical piece. He started dung, 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 dung. And next thing I know, every time someone come in the house, I went, son, play the piano. Show them what you can do. He's playing classical music. Because I allowed him his creative energy to come forth. I didn't give him a forbidden, you need to read.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the way. That's every child. I mean, we'll get into it in the next episode, but every child could come up with Einstein's gravity after he got off the elevator and was told that a ruler is not necessarily fixed in length. Those are the only pieces of information, and that might be a fictitious force, which you can measure. Poor Einstein didn't have an iPhone, and he didn't have 3D computer graphics, but it's just easy to show this theory. And yet, people can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you one thing that Einstein did. I mean, not that I understand science or physics at all. When he said, the further you go up, time changes.
The clocks change their speed, absolutely, and no one really.
I was so fucking excited because I was so not fitting in with what everyone would lied. I was a rebel, the biggest rebel in the world. It was not right. It didn't resonate. That comes from my brother putting that in me. It's called a bullshit detector. That's what it's called.
Yes, of course. People get theirs neutered every day in school, and I just get thrown out of school.
Yeah, I was threatened with Borstal, and I was teachers used to beat me daily for and letters to my parents, who then would beat me daily, and it was really just being beaten up for many years. But apart from that, Einstein, when his theory about as you go up, the time changes.
That's a very subtle effect, but it's a real effect that if you don't take into account that all the satellites crash.
Yeah, but for me at that point, in this weird world I'm in because of my experiences, I was going through walls, I was on another planet, I was in another dimension. So there was no time anywhere else. And guys, if you want any proof, there is no such thing as a time. There's no time in your dreams, in your experiences. That's what it feels like for me. It's the only analogy I can give you. When you're in a dream that you really recall, there's no time. There's just experiencing things. Quantum physics, you're experiencing, and the potentiality of experiences. There's so many potentialities. You could experience anything because there's no time. So when I heard that, that really got me, because it allowed me to understand myself more personally, because I broke the time-space continuum. I broke it by I'm drinking the water. It's my experience. It's my truth. Just like you said, a child at school puts a hand on its heart. It's not my truth. It's not my truth. It's not my truth. That's what I'm talking about. Experiential knowing of something. Yeah.
Yes. And they try to train it out of us, but people like shit disturbers like you can't be stopped.
No. And your wife, she's a shit disturber as well.
She isn't, but she's got such a big heart that she doesn't put anyone off.
Does it more elegantly than me. She does it, better than I. She's more gentle shit stirrer.
Right, right. You and I would scare them off, but then Gail would bring them back in.
Oh hell yeah. She would like. Well, no, but I've got to the point. I spent many years talking, very, forever. It's like regurgitating, and sometimes this is another thing I learned. Sometimes I do speak to people like Gail. I do, but I'm speaking to you, a hardcore scientist. So you're unshakable, all right? So I can speak like this. But if I'm speaking to I normally go, and I like people to speak to me on my sort of intellectual level, which is not very high.
Well, I'm calling bullshit. You keep saying how you don't know science and you're not very high, and that you must be very high, because I've seen Professor Sage Genius Richard Feynman say exactly what you say, and he doesn't put any humble pie on it either. And those are the forces that you're talking about, and you're just one half step ahead of me in explaining that. Of course, the thing that keeps my hand from passing through my other hand is stronger than gravity.
Yes, it is. It is. I mean, and I think that force we've done it again. We've digressed. Hold on. For me, that force, that force, that is on the external, let's say, of this physical, whatever it's called. Let's call it force A. Okay. That force.
I think it's called the strong nuclear force or something. But go on.
Well, can I call it force A? Because I'm a layperson. You be the scientist, I'll be the layperson, right? I'll be the student.
I probably have it wrong. Go ahead.
Right, you be my professor, okay, prof? Here we go. That force so resonates with me from quantum physics. To me, that force explains everything in the universe, everything, and how So, for example, God, I wish I could speak like you. For example, so I got that force. So we see the force here. So we're really we're on equal forces here, opposite and negative, but we're on equal forces because it's this hand is attached to this body and this one is attached to this body, right? Okay, there we go. But when we use that force, like here's another an example for you. Way back in the day, I would muck about with Tai Chi. Okay, everyone does a bit of Tai Chi, and I would create with my teacher called the Chi ball, the energy ball. All right, and it was my truth. Now this is another thing, that it comes from the individual. And then one day I was with someone else who believed in the Chi ball, the energy ball, and we're doing this, and we're actually in my old house in the kitchen. He's one side of the room, I'm the other side of the room. You explain this, Professor. And I get the ball and we're playing it and we're in it and we're gone. I mean, there's no mind. We're playing with this energy. I call it quantum energy now. And I said, catch. And he caught and he felt it and he threw it back and I caught. But I like social experiments because I'm naughty. He thought we'd stopped. This is a God's truth. And he put his hand down. He was unaware. He was going to get something. and I threw it, and it hit him, the force field, and it moved him. And he went, "What the fuck you do that for?" I'm going, what the fuck happened there? It was an accident. I was being me. Can you explain that? I'm not the only one that does it.
Like full circle. The name of my company is Pantomime.
Well, there you go.
I love balancing a ball that may or may not be real in my hand.
Love it. I love it. I love it because I perceive, I come from what you call self-realization. So I perceive the whole of this experience as a pantomime to enjoy, to play, to get excited, to create, to love, to give, to share, to be grateful for. So I like the name. This is a good pantomime for me. I love that. So David, we got to stop, or we're going to chat until your wife will divorce you for spending too much time on the show.
Honey, say Lou, say bonnet, say rubbish. Oh.
Are you ready? David, rubbish.
Oh, the Queen's English gets me so excited.
Rubbish, darling. Rubbish. It's rubbish. I behaved, didn't I? I was going to start off with it. And I thought, no, I better not, because I really want the scientists to come out. Okay, David, we've got to end the show. We've gone over an hour and a half. I could go on, but I need the loo, I need to eat, and all the rest of it. We're going to come back and do some more shows. But for anyone watching, and if Gail, you better be listening, the next show I'm going to have Gail and David together.
That's fun.
Me and Gail, well, Gail suggested it. Blame the wife, darling, not me. And I thought, yeah, I had Gail last week. I've got you this week. And then there'll be a show, the two of you together. God help us all. What's going to come out of that? But we will have future shows on the top of the areas we discussed today. And but before we close today, first, thank you for the most enjoyable, informative, spontaneous conversation with David Levitt. Thank you so much indeed. That's first. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And secondly, where can people get your book? Sell yourself shamelessly, where people can get hold of and access your stuff.
So if you want to see more astonishing, eye-popping videos, go to Pantomime Co. at TikTok. If you're fortunate enough to have a recent model iPhone Pro or iPad Pro, you can actually reach into the most amazing virtual worlds. It's Apple only, with Reality Construction Kit. That's the name of the app, Reality Construction Kit. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of amazing. You can tack things up in space like you saw in that video and play with them exactly as if they were real. You can't tell what's real and what's not. So what a fun state to be in. If you wanted to read about if the secret truth about gravity, you'll find that under David Levitt on medium.com, the writing site. I've got 2 articles. Space itself is expanding is a little more technical, and the secret truth about gravity captures some of the crazy. The truth is harder to believe than fiction.
Yes, yeah, I'm with you. And on that note, David, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Don't go anywhere. Wait till we end the show. And to everyone else, I'm back. It's Saturday tomorrow, isn't it? I'm lost. I'm back tomorrow evening, Saturday, Inception podcast. And tomorrow night, I have the one and only returning catch-up guest, Brandon Thomas. And I've got to tell you, he's named the show, the advert will either go out later today or tomorrow. And me and Brandon tomorrow night, live on Inception podcast, are going to go so far down the rabbit hole. We always go down the rabbit hole, always. He's the most amazing being I've ever met. And we're going to go so far down. I doubt if you come down with us, I doubt if you ever get out. So you don't want to miss the show tomorrow. Until the next time, guys, I'm Gloria. This is Inception Live Podcast. Thank you for watching. Speak to you soon.